If we want to see real long-term groundbreaking success in our tech ecosystem, we've got to bite the bullet and do things differently. The public sector can and possibly could do more around in the investment landscape. We know we've not got a strong enough investment landscape yet, especially at that very early risk stage. Could co-investment drive a different landscape?
Hello and welcome to Traction, a video and podcast series exploring innovation, growth and technology success. I'm James Taylor, founder of Roaring Mouse, PR advisor to some of the world's most innovative startups. I'm here at Pennine 5 in Sheffield with my co-host Peter Hopton, founder of Very PC, Isotope and Venture Community. He's also an investor, mentor and rockstar chairman of Productive Machines and Tuber. And we're joined today by a very special guest, Tracy Johnson, Project Director of Tech SY. Hello.
Hello, nice to be here.
How are you doing?
Good, it's Friday, so yeah, always a good day of the week.
Tracy, welcome to Traction. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you're trying to achieve with Tech SY?
I can, and I'll try and keep it the short version. So I've been working for a number of years trying to support the development of the creative and digital ecosystem in South Yorkshire, and more recently very much focused on the tech ecosystem. And Tech SY has emerged from that work. It's a project funded by the Combined Authority, the South Yorkshire Mayoral Combined Authority led by Mayor Oliver Coppard. And the Combined Authority invited me to explore how we could work as the public sector to support the development of the tech ecosystem in the long term. Tech SY is the result of that, and it's a project that works across three main areas, really. One is around that long-term strategy piece. You know, we have been here before. We've tried to develop strategy to develop the tech and digital ecosystem. It's had a few false starts. There's no two ways about it. We've tried a lot. We kind of understand better what works. So there's a big piece of work about talking to businesses, talking to stakeholders in the ecosystem and understanding, right, what do we need to do for the long term and putting that into an action plan that actually is deliverable. You know, where we're going to get the money from, how we're going to do it, all that sort of stuff. So that's the kind of future facing bit that's very much integrated into what's already happening and who's already doing it. The second thing is about really positioning Sheffield and South Yorkshire in the global landscape for tech. So better understanding our data, ensuring that we know what's going on, that we're talking to other ecosystems out there. And then importantly for entrepreneurs, there's a strand of activity that's really focused on, I guess the government are using the phrase test and learn, but kind of what is the best kind of support for the businesses in the ecosystem that the public sector can offer. So we've got a couple of different areas where we're piloting support to see if we can make a difference to businesses. And then underpinning all of that is really, really trying to talk a good story about Tech SY, talking the real story about tech in South Yorkshire as opposed to Tech SY, amplifying the good stuff that's already here, and trying to really get our messaging as far as we can into the right ears to affect long-term change.
Through Traction, we've been talking to tech CEOs about scaling their businesses, but your role is almost to scale a tech ecosystem that has thousands of tech businesses. Do you think there are similarities in those?
I kind of hope there is, because my work over the years, and I'm from the private sector originally, and I have to kind of accept I'm in the public sector now. I've been here for 15 years, there's no denying it, but has been to do things a bit differently in the public sector. I firmly believe the public sector has a positive role to play. It shouldn't be all about regulation and bureaucracy. There's actually opportunities for us to be a better customer. There's opportunities for us to be potentially an investor. There's opportunities for us to just do business differently. And that's been a big part of my work over the years is, right, okay, you know, we want to support startups, we want to support scale-ups. We need to understand how they work, how they think, take more risk, mitigated risk. It is public money at the end of the day. But we need to have that hunger, we need to have that appetite, we need to have the right product, we need to understand our customers, who are the businesses. So there's a lot of alignment. I hope increasingly more alignment, and it feels like more and more that is how the public sector wants to do business, which is really positive, I think.
The last few years have been turbulent for the technology sector, not just here, but globally. Yeah. How's South Yorkshire's tech economy looking today?
I think, like everywhere, we've weathered a storm. But I think that the fact that we're not Manchester, we're not London, we have a really interesting ecosystem that's incredibly collaborative, easy to access. Somebody new comes in, they're made to feel very welcome. It's a very kind of flat hierarchy, which is brilliant. And I think you can reach good people really quickly to help you with what you're doing. And I think that has helped us to weather a few storms, in that there's a real team spirit in South Yorkshire. But yeah, the macroeconomic situation, global politics, all have an influence on what happens locally. How can they not? And I think, you're seeing that now with, we're seeing much more AI both come in as a fundamental technology within a tech business, as well as technologies that other businesses are using. And obviously that's a whole global landscape. And just this week, here's this week, my brain's failing me. The rise of the Chinese sort of approach to AI versus the ChatGPT and OpenAI, it's opening up a huge new conversation there, but also it directly affects the markets. So where we have companies, that could be affected by that, that's something we need to be aware of. But I think in South Yorkshire, and Sheffield in particular, there's been a good level of resilience. But I do think we can do more, particularly within the system, if you like, to support that resilience. And we absolutely need to look beyond resilience and think about now growth and understand what companies need to go to the next level. We've been through COVID and everything that brought. We've been through sort of a drop in investment levels. And whilst if you look at the stats, that might not have hit us as hard, I suppose, as other areas, that's because we didn't have enough investment happening in the first place. So we need to kind of get our stats right, get our understanding of that right, and think about, right, what happens next? We are resilient. We need to grow. There's a big opportunity next, I think.
My understanding is that Tech SY is funded for 2 years currently. Is that long enough to make a material difference? What are you hoping to achieve in that period?
It's a really good question. And I think, 2 years isn't very long, and we're already 6 months into it. So it's not 2 years, it's another 18 months. And, people will say, oh, everything's all short term with the public sector. You only fund a programme for this length of time because there's only that funding available. This is slightly different. It was always designed to be short term, because it isn't about delivering accelerators or delivering direct business support. It's not that. That's we've got product that we're testing as part of it. But fundamentally, Tech SY is about challenging ourselves to do things differently, and that needs to be time constrained. What happens beyond Tech SY is to be decided by the process, really. So Tech SY, I don't know, would you call it our MVP? I'm not quite sure, but the action plan is kind of the outcome of Tech SY, the convening and connecting of the ecosystem. That's part of the bread and butter of what we're doing. Get the action plan right and actually happening. That will be the change that we want to effect in the system. Long term, Tech SY might be part of that, but right now we are deliberately short term to really try and effect change.
What do you think is going to happen at the end of the funding, Tracy?
It's a good question, and an interesting question that all of the staff that we recruited into the team have asked as well, understandably. I'd like to think that we can mainstream the tech ecosystem as part of the fabric of our economy a little more. The public sector, in areas, post-industrial areas that are perhaps underperforming economically, there's a tradition of a lot of public sector money going into business support. It has, seen a lot of good success, because let's face it, in some of our smaller areas, if you're not constantly trying to do things differently, trying to support businesses, your economy goes backwards. It doesn't just stay standing still. But I think that one of the challenges we've had is making sure that tech and the companies in that sector and the people working in that industry and the people that will work in those industries in the future are a priority for us. Perhaps that hasn't been as strong. So I think that, Tech SY is built off a lot of work we've done in Barnsley previously. And in Barnsley, there's been a real mainstreaming of tech and digital into the political and strategic agenda of the local authority, which I think is a powerful cry to everybody to say this stuff matters. And I would really like to see that prioritisation at regional level. I think it's kind of there. I think there's a collective understanding of it, but things coming out of government at the moment are indicating in the industrial strategy, tech and digital will be a big priority. Us making sure that we're ready to respond to that, I think, as a region. And if there's a role for the public sector to play in that, then I hope that's influenced and potentially an extension of Tech SY. But, you have to be, if you're going to do something different, you have to be prepared to fail and you have to be prepared to stop.
Obviously, in region, there's a lot of talent. What do you see as the key areas that that South Yorkshire has, in which it excels, and which it's the best?
I think in terms of our, if you like, the industries we have, I mean, we obviously are a big area for manufacturing, particularly advanced manufacturing. There's a huge amount of work gone on over the last 2 decades around the Advanced Manufacturing Innovation District. It's a massive opportunity, it's a massive cluster, and I think we've got a lot of multi-generational knowledge and experience in that industry, and we see a whole spectrum of businesses in manufacturing, from the cutting edge materials technology through to businesses that have been owned for generations across South Yorkshire, and there's huge opportunity in that landscape for all of that knowledge to work with technology to help it do things better, do things differently, keep innovating, keep evolving. I think we've got a lot of opportunity as well around health. In the north, we do unfortunately have a lot of issues around health, and trying to improve the health and well-being of citizens is a big priority for the NHS, for the public sector. And I think we've got some fantastic innovators in the health service in this region, really wanting to do things differently. You just have to look at things like the National Centre for Child Health Technology being built on the Olympic Legacy Park, and Professor Paul Dimitri and the work he does. Huge opportunity to really gather all those people working in that space to innovate. But I think we are a region of really good problem solvers as well. And I think that we're seeing certainly some really fascinating spin-outs coming out of the university, and whether that's bioscience or things like Exciting Instruments and the brilliant work that they're doing, and the stuff that Bo are doing with robotics. I think the innovation, the engineering, the problem-solving capability is a massive part of the talent of South Yorkshire. And, we are a kind of community of tinkerers, and we want to do things, we want to make things happen, we have little patience. So I think we're ideally suited to tech. Plus, I also think creative industries are a huge opportunity for us in the region.
We're a region of makers,
Yeah.
aren't we? We make music, we make games, we make materials, we make products. Yeah. And the number of people that have a shed in their garden in which they're making things is very, very high, I think, per capita.
It is.
And that creative freedom that exists around that.
We're a region of designers as well, and I think that comes back to the problem-solving. Design within the creative industries in all of its forms is actually really well represented in Sheffield and South Yorkshire, and I think that shows that sort of innate creativity, and sometimes being perhaps at the back of the queue for things in the past makes you more creative with your solutions. So it's a real sort of innate skill.
We say back of the queue in the past, we're going back 30 or so years to the 80s, aren't we? Where there was an era here that impacted the area's prospects. But if we went back before that, we're in the San Jose of the Industrial Revolution, the San Jose of the era of material science, aren't we? We're here in the region of Mr. Bessemer and stainless steel and copper plating. All of the train lines go through here because all of the trains and all of the tracks were made here, and the Brooklyn Bridge was made here, even though the Brooklyn Bridge is the other side of the planet. So this was very meaningful as a place, and there's that legacy of making, I think, that comes from that, that underpins the AMID and underpins all of these things that bring stuff together.
I think there's a level of community that comes with that as well, though, and I think, without wanting to go more in the bit of the socioeconomics, I think, you look at the region as a whole, there's industrial strength there, but around the clusters of industry, there was also strong communities developed, and Barnsley is a prime example. It's a place of many places. Barnsley, of all these really tightly knit communities around the different mining areas, and you see the same in Doncaster, Rotherham and Sheffield, and I think that community spirit is still incredibly strong, and I think it does translate into how we develop the ecosystem. As I said at the start, I think actually coming into Sheffield ecosystem and the wider South Yorkshire system, it's incredibly connected and it's incredibly friendly in the main, and you find an access point and you find a journey through it and people want to help, and that's that community spirit I think that the region has.
Traction is brought to you by Roaring Mouse, the PR and content agency behind some of the world's most innovative technology businesses, and Venture Community, a cooperative society where entrepreneurs, experts and founders come together to build and accelerate startups. There are those out there who say that taxpayers' money that is being invested in exploring the possibilities of technology would be better spent advancing advanced engineering and advanced manufacturing where there is already a critical mass of people and companies. What's the rationale for investing in a broader tech ecosystem?
I think there's a lot of rationale for investing in the strengths and the opportunities there, as you say, and I think that is actually happening. The investment zone that we have in Sheffield and Rotherham, and with sort of sectors, not sectors, but spaces in sort of Barnsley, Doncaster and Rotherham as well, opportunity sites. That demonstrates that there's a desire to continue to invest in what we do well and to grow it even further. But also I would say that I think it's well acknowledged that for particularly manufacturing and advanced manufacturing, there's a need for innovation, there's a need for technology to come into that as well. You just have to go and see Factory 2050 at the MRC and look at how technology is being bolted onto older machines. There's a great old lathe there with some sensors on it, just seeing how technology makes a difference to how we make things. So I think that there's a role for technology to play within that industry, which is our massive strength, but there's a role for technology to play across other areas, and whether that's kind of given us the chance to do more of what we're good at in the creative industries, in health and well-being, excuse me, and in logistics, that these are all areas where there's high levels of employment in the region. But we're also, the public sector is quite a big customer for technology, but a lot of our money goes to the large companies. It goes to the Microsofts, the SAPs of this world. How could we spend some more of that money in the regional market for tech? I think that's something, we need to consider in the long term, because we want to sweat our assets. We want manufacturing and innovation to work. But we need right now really good tech companies coming through, solving the problems of right now. But we also need jobs for our future generations, and we need to solve the problems of the future that way. And technology is just going to be an integral part of that, isn't it? We might not need, generations of people that can code to the highest level, because with the rise of AI and open solutions and low code and no code, it's going to be so much more easier to develop technology, but we need the innate understanding of technology, and it needs to be part of our economy. There's just no two ways about it.
Where do you think the public sector, in the ecosystem of startups and technology, where do you think the public sector should intervene, and where do you think the public sector shouldn't intervene? What do you see as the start and end of the role there?
It's a really interesting question, Pete, because I think it differs by place for sure. I've done a lot of work with cities across Europe, and the systems work differently. And actually, it's very difficult at times for the public sector to intervene in some places in a way that's meaningful, because they're so tied down by bureaucracy. But in the UK, whilst it might feel sometimes like we're incredibly bureaucratic, actually we're not as bureaucratic as people perceive us to be. The public sector has a level of agility to respond to the needs that are there right now. I guess sometimes it doesn't feel like that because it is a big system and it takes a while to move. But I think that there's a lot we can do. We can put the right support, we can fund the right support in the right places, but to do that we need to know where that support needs to go, and what that support needs to look like. So, there's making sure we know what we're doing and we're putting support in the right places. Learning from what we've done in the past, iterating is really important. I think the public sector can and possibly could do more around in the investment landscape. We know we've not got a strong enough investment landscape yet, especially at that very early risk stage. I think there's some great work being done, there's some great investments being made. Some of yours, stand out in that. But could co-investment drive a different landscape? Could we de-risk some of those riskier investments and then wrap the support around to make sure that, some businesses probably need to fail, but not, actually there's some that would benefit from a little bit of risk capital early on to help develop. So there's more we can do there. But I really like the fact that the current government has spoken about the need to be a better customer, because I think that's where we've got a lot of room for manoeuvre as the public sector. And the public sector is a big beast. We're not just talking about councils, we're talking about health and public services like that. So I think there's a huge array of places that we can intervene, but I think we need to be in the room. And if you ask an entrepreneur, what can the public sector do? They will always say, get out of the way. But actually, there's places where we need to get out of the way, but there's places where we can be a better friend to the economy. And I firmly believe that's what we can do with Tech SY.
A lot of tech hubs thrive in part thanks to collaboration with research universities. Yeah. Do you think there's enough being done to unlock the commercial potential of the talent and research coming out of those in Sheffield?
I think there's a lot being done at the moment, and we're seeing the result of that from the spin-outs that we're getting. I think Andy Hogman and the team there are brilliant at putting the right support in at the right time to their researchers to help them really understand what the landscape looks like for them. And we're seeing that grow really year on year. You're seeing the investment raised by the companies that come out strengthening all of the time. You're seeing the mentor networks that are put in to support those companies being really strong, and they're not just regional, they're global networks of knowledge being input into that. The work that Sheffield Hallam do around the Advanced Wellbeing Research Centre, really solving some quite serious problems in our health landscape in innovative ways. There's a lot being done, but there's always more to do. And I think that is about where you join the dots a little bit more, and that's where I think academia, public sector and the private sector working more together to kind of, have some frank conversations about where support needs to go is really important going forward. And I think, again, with Tech SY, it's a vehicle through which we can have more of those conversations. The teams from both universities are deeply involved in our stakeholder work, and that's really important. They're a critical part of the landscape. But there's a huge amount of research happening, and yes, some of it isn't coming out of the universities and into the ecosystem yet. I think there's more work to be done on making sure that when great innovation's happening, it comes off the shelf and out into the economy as well. So yeah, there's more to do, but I think we've got some brilliant examples of stuff that's working. You look at Opteran. I love Opteran and their technology based on bee behaviour and eyesight, I think it is. That's really deep research that's monitored in sort of milestones, not necessarily revenue at this stage. We need to create the supportive landscape for more of that, really.
I hear you. The ability to raise money is proportional to revenue, and in those early stages, there's necessity to offer assistance to companies to get them to a point where they can raise revenue.
Yeah.
And there's also necessity, I think, for the public sector as a coordinator role. To try and reduce the amount of disjoint and silo. Do you agree?
I think so. I think that you don't want a monoculture ecosystem, and the best ecosystems that I've been to and spent time in and spoken to, and I think particularly about Scandinavia, and you visit Helsinki, and I think it's just such an open and welcoming environment. And like everywhere, people have disagreements, but the public and private sector and academia just work together by nature. And I think that's what we should be striving to do, because you see how quickly things happen in those ecosystems as a result of that, because it's in everybody's interest to support each other.
Make the case for starting and scaling up tech companies in South Yorkshire. Why should they choose here rather than anywhere else in the world?
It's a really good point, and I haven't perfected my pitch on this, so it's not going to be the elevator pitch, but I think that it's not a small ecosystem, but it's smaller than some well-connected ecosystem can move mountains for early stage entrepreneurs. And when you talk about an ecosystem, there's a place base to it, but actually when you really look, the Sheffield and South Yorkshire ecosystem is connected globally. And I think that's a really powerful thing. So it's an entry point into a global economy and a global network of knowledge, support, investment. That's really important. I think that, we talk about needing more local investment happening. And yeah, you want more angels and VCs that are in the region. Brilliant. But actually just being able to open the doors to the right opportunities wherever they may come from for businesses, for me, I think is quite a powerful thing. And I think that we do wrap a lot of love around our startups. We certainly try to. There's an ecosystem that really wants to see success. So for companies that that really need that nurturing support. Spaces that, like Sheffield Tech Parks, will respond to anything that a business needs to try and make it the right environment for them. And you've got places like DMC in Barnsley, you've got all the great properties in Rotherham, Doncaster with a brilliant tech hub that they're developing as well. There's homes for businesses, and in those homes there's people that care about the businesses and want to see them succeed. And I think that's the powerful thing of Sheffield and South Yorkshire, is that sense of community, that sense of really responsive support that just wants the best for the business and success for the business.
We've got a lot of digital success. We've got a lot of manufacturing success. We've got a lot of medtech success. What do you see as the key startups of the past and tech companies in the past that should be inspiration for the startups of the future?
Well, that's a really good question. I think we've got really good heritage of startups. And I instantly think of the Flow and the work that they've done. Is kind of, they've really created a real groove for themselves. And I think the work that they do is fantastic. And I think also the work that they've done to take their technology into solving problems in the region as well. And Sam Chapman, did a huge amount around transport and those sorts of things. So I think the Flow strike me as just a brilliant example that we should be flag waving of, a really good business that does technically excellent things, but brings that technology to bear on the place as well.
So there's all this legacy of digital that's here, and I think that legacy of digital is here because of a huge amount of talent that likes to stay here and not leave. And there's some magic, isn't there, Tracy? You feel the magic. I mean, you're not from around here. Tell me about your
Can you tell?
Your impressions of the magic of South Yorkshire.
There's a reason I'm still here after moving here in the late 90s, and it is because, it sounds cheesy, but there's a huge amount of opportunity, and the place gets under your skin. You want to see it succeed, and you have to have some tenacity, you have to have the courage, and you have to have the long-term view and really be driven by wanting to see impact, to make a difference, I think. I hope in my work that I've been able to do some of that over the years. But yeah, I moved here back in the 90s for work in the telecommunications sector. I was supporting the development of contact centres, and it was clear straight away there is something in the air in South Yorkshire. It's a powerful place that makes you feel very welcome very quickly. And it's a straight talking place, borderline whether that's just straight talking versus rude, but I've adopted it as my rule as well. And I think that kind of, it's a place where there's a collective will to want to do the right thing for the place in the long term. So why would you not want to be here? It's green, it's fun, it's got amazing architecture, huge ambition, fantastic research institutions. It's a place that it's good to spend time in.
Authentic, I think, is the word.
Authentic, yeah.
It's authentic.
Yeah. The North East is also very authentic. I must stress.
And authentic, but it has a certain warmth to it too.
The North East freezing.
One question I was meaning to ask, given the time, a short answer would be good. Previous initiatives have focused on very early stage startups, and the data suggests that South Yorkshire has been successful in driving the new company formations, but also in attracting early stage technology companies from outside of the region too. Is that still a focus for you and the team at Tech SY, or are you looking more towards advancing bigger scale-ups that already have a fair amount of traction behind them?
We need to do a bit of both. I think it's clear that there is no silver bullet in economic development. If there was, we'd all be happy. We wouldn't be having these conversations. So we know we've got to keep supporting the very early stage. We need more ideas. We need people with ideas coming through. We need the right support at that stage, undoubtedly. What happens to them next? We need to really think about that. We need to wrap that support around as much as possible, not just public sector, but within the private sector and the ecosystem as well, and all the stakeholders involved. But to really affect long-term change, we also need to support the growth period, the scale-up period. And as a combined authority, there's a real desire to look at how we do that. It's very difficult to do because it costs more to do that kind of support, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. If we want to see real long-term groundbreaking success in our tech ecosystem, we've got to bite the bullet and do things differently. And I think developing scale-up support, developing the right networks and pathways for companies that are potential scale-ups, it's a big part of what we're looking at data at in Tech SY, is to try and identify those scale-ups earlier and try and make sure the right support is in place from the ecosystem and from different programs when we can. But yeah, there's a lot of plates to spin. It's not an easy job to get it right. You look at every successful ecosystem in the world, there's not one solution there. It's a lot of people working in concert to do the right thing. We've got to do the same.
That's all for now. From all of us here at Traction, thank you for watching. Thanks for listening. Thank you for being part of the show. If you enjoyed it, please like, comment, share, and follow us for future episodes. Until the next time, goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you, Tracy.